Welcome back to H4Games. I'm Tony.
And I'm John.
What is Zelda beta questing and what is Ura Zelda? So, biggest question regarding beta questing, what the hell is Zelda beta questing?
Here's your answer. Goodbye.
Goodbye. What does that even mean? That's not necessarily a topic or a term a lot of people have heard of.
So, in the cartridge, there's a lot of little bits and scraps of previous versions. Didn't quite get cleaned out. And if you take it and you fiddle with this, you can find some of them, like R-wings, exploding gems, stuff like that. Some wipes, some shades, some transitions.
Transitions, if you will.
Very brave.
Now, you don't have to just use the cartridge. You can also use the debug ROM. In fact, there's a lot more material on the debug ROM. We've yet to start utilizing that because we're just starting to clean up and showcase everything the cartridge has to offer, but eventually we're going to start using the debug ROM, which is a lot easier. And when we're talking about beta questing today, we're mostly talking about Ocarina of Time. You can do it with the other Zelda games, but we've primarily done it specifically with Zelda 64. Why would you beta quest? To understand why, you kind of have to know a little bit about the history of Zelda 64 and how it first started on the disk drive.
Yeah, I'd say that's fair. That's fair.
Would you like to explain that for me?
No.
Okay.
All right.
The reasoning why has to do with how this game was developed. Now, it was originally developed for the Nintendo 64 disk drive. It was going to be possibly a launch, but definitely a flagship title for the system. But as the DD started lagging behind and kept getting delayed, the developers were basically like, all right, we need to kind of shit or get off the pot with this. So they cut a ton of content and transferred to cartridge.
Yes.
Right? And then even on the cartridge, it went through many reiterations of the game. But they didn't necessarily remove everything from the cartridge. So,
because not everything needed to be. The
exactly.
little bits that were left over weren't taking up too much space, so they were just kind of left in.
For people that are interested in the history of Ocarina of Time, you know, we're often interested in like what would have been or what could have been. So diving into the game's code, beta questing, and kind of drawing to the surface these beta and alpha elements give us an idea as to what the developers originally intended for the game before they had to make heavy sacrifices due to the disk drive kind of failing and moving it onto cartridge.
And in some cases, some of their other spitballed ideas.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think necessarily all of it was their unencumbered vision, but it might have just been trying a few things, see if they work out.
A really good example of that is there is a Star Fox R-Wing in the code, and it wasn't ever going to necessarily be in the game. They were just using it as a model for the Fire Temple's boss. Like in terms of the movement, how the R-Wing moved. Because there was a dragon as the Fire Temple boss, and they're like, so they were just like, all right, we want to see this kind of serpentine motion.
Volvagina. Volvavagia.
Now, there's also a couple of great finds that we've had. For those of you that haven't watched our channel yet, we found a giant rupee that when you touch it just explodes. And there were some other things too, like alpha version heart containers that kind of look like stained glass, sort of crystalline features, all of which you can watch in some of our earlier episodes if that's something that you're interested in. Now that brings us to Ura Zelda. What the heck is Ura Zelda?
Oh boy. It was an expansion. So you'd have your little cartridge, and then you'd put your disc in, and then you would be playing the content that was on that disc, which most likely would have been missing content from this. So it was originally designed for that nice big disc, but now you have the cartridge and the disc, so you could add new content. Now, eventually, there were bigger cartridges that could hold it all, so it was kind of a moot point, and Nintendo not just releasing the full thing on one disc really kind of just gave us all the finger. Thanks.
What does Ura Zelda even mean? What does the word Ura or Ura mean?
Well, I'm not 100% certain. So why don't we consult an expert and have him explain why it translates to Conker's Bad Fur Day.
ああ、もっかりまっか、トニちゃん。お姫様を 食べたか一緒にシャワーに浴びましょうかじゃあ
You bring up some really good points there, but what is Ura Zelda exactly? What does it mean? The word.
Well, what do I look like? Some sort of weeb? I'm not a weeb expert. I'm a Japanese cultural consultant. Ura does not mean another. That's usually what all the US articles seem to say. It says literally means another Zelda. But no, that actually doesn't mean another. You can look at any Japanese dictionary and look under Ura, another never comes up, and you can look under another, and Ura never comes up. So they're not equivalent to each other. Ura really means like the back side of something or the reverse side of something, like the flip side of a coin. So it really means like the reverse side, the flip side of Zelda, the reverse side, the other Zelda. Not quite a Zelda, another Zelda in the sense that it's an additional Zelda, but these are just small nuances. It really doesn't make a big difference. No shit. Mokarimaka!
Does Ura Zelda overlap with beta questing at all? A
Little bit?
smidge. You can put in codes in the Game Shark or in the debug ROM for Ocarina of Time and find the Ura Zelda file select.
Yes.
The Ura Zelda title screen, which is pretty cool. And this is the first time this is being shown on our channel, which is kind of neat. So there were little tidbits of Ura Zelda on the cartridge, but like tidbits, like that's it. So that brings us to the question of fan projects. After Metal Jesus' video dropped, I saw a lot of comments, especially on our videos, asking if different fan projects were Ura Zelda. And they were kind of confused as to whether like what they were seeing was someone taking the Ura Zelda ROM and hacking it, or if it was some new creation. So there's a bunch of different Ura Zelda games out there. What exactly are they?
It's a very sought after name. It's very juicy, great SEO. So anybody who wants to make a project to put back in what they thought had been promised, things that had been in promotional materials, basically to try and make what could have been, will often use a name with Ura somewhere in it.
Yeah.
At this time, there aren't really any true Ura ROMs.
No.
Yet.
And to your point, you know, there were a lot of interviews talking about what was supposed to be in Ura Zelda, which primarily consisted of new dungeons, new quests, new weapons, new characters, those sort of things. So people have taken that and kind of expanded on it. And because Ura means like the flip side of, or the reverse, or another Zelda, you can kind of get away with calling your project Ura Zelda because it still technically makes sense. But it's not, they're not the droids you're looking for. Like they're not, it's not truly what Ura Zelda was supposed to be. They may be fun. They may be great projects, but they're not Ura Zelda like you and I are thinking of them. Now, what became of Ura Zelda?
Pretty much nothing.
You speak so highly of the Master Quest. No. Master Quest was a GameCube bonus disc.
Yes.
That came along if you pre-ordered Wind
like
Waker.
The B-side of a bonus disc. I think is the best way to describe it. And it was a few things here and there were swapped around.
Dungeon stuff. All dungeon stuff.
Yeah, I think it was to try and give you a little bit of a new experience on it. Because it's the same game we've played a bajillion times. So, you know, you swap a few things here and there, and suddenly you start having to question and explore and get a new experience out of it. And it doesn't take too much work to do that.
Yeah, and I think that was workable for the dungeons, but it should not be considered Ura Zelda. Maybe it should be considered a sacrificed vision of Ura Zelda or a botched Ura Zelda, but it wasn't truly what Ura Zelda was supposed to be.
If that was what Ura Zelda was supposed to be, you would have heard so many people saying, I want my money back.
Yeah. I hope this cleared up some questions that you all had regarding what the beta quest is and what Ura Zelda is. Thank you so much for subscribing, and we will see you next time.
Conker's Bad Fur Day.
Conker's Bad Fur Day. Thank you again for watching. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a like and a share, and we will see you guys next time.